Freemasonry on the Oregon Trail, Expanded Series. When people think about the Oregon Trail, they picture wagon wheels carving through endless prairie, families searching for a new life, and thousands of miles of uncertainty stretching in front of them. But what often gets overlooked is how many of those pioneers carried Freemasonry with them. Not as a formal lodge, but as a bond, a culture, and a shared identity that helped hold their world together on the frontier. In the mid-1800s, as Americans pushed west in massive numbers, Freemasonry was already well established in towns along the Missouri River, the launching point for most wagon trains. Places like Independence, St. Joseph, and Council Bluffs had active lodges, and many of the men preparing to head west were already Master Masons. They didn't know if they'd ever see those lodges again, but they carried their obligations with them. On the trail, that connection mattered. Life on the Oregon Trail was dangerous, unpredictable, and often lonely. Families faced disease, river crossings, harsh weather, broken equipment, and the constant struggle for food and safety. In that environment, Masons naturally gravitated toward each other. They shared skills, protected one another, and formed small pockets of familiarity in an unfamiliar world. Even without a lodge room, those relationships created a sense of stability, a reminder of the civilized life they had left behind. Historical journals and trail accounts tell stories of Masons recognizing each other by signs or phrases and instantly forming friendships. Some wagon trains even had enough Masons to hold informal gatherings in the evenings. Not tiled meetings, but conversations, prayer circles, and small moments of fraternity around the campfire. These were opportunities to share news, offer support, or simply feel human again after endless days on the trail. In an environment where life could change in a moment, the steady, familiar language of Masonry brought comfort. The further the pioneers traveled, the more important that companionship became. When illness struck, Masons tended to each other's families. When wagons broke, Masons helped with repairs. When decisions had to be made about routes, timing, or safety, Masons often emerged as trusted voices. They weren't leaders because they demanded authority. They were leaders because their character and obligations made them reliable in moments of crisis. As the migration reached its peak, Freemasonry followed the pioneers westward and took root in the territories long before civilization fully formed. Oregon's first lodge, Multnomah Lodge No. 1, was chartered in 1846, 3 years before the gold rush and 13 years before Oregon achieved statehood. California's first lodge was chartered in 1849, organized by men who had traveled the trail, crossed the Sierra Nevada, or arrived by sea. Idaho, Washington, Montana, and Wyoming all saw Masonic activity rise almost immediately as settlers arrived. In many frontier towns, the lodge was one of the very first institutions ever organized, sometimes before a church, a school, or even a proper courthouse. It wasn't unusual for a new settlement to have a handful of cabins, a general store, and a Masonic lodge meeting in an upper room or a barn. Masonry's influence echoed across the West, as its members often brought the discipline, structure, and steady leadership needed to help transform frontier camps into functioning communities. Freemasonry also shaped frontier justice and frontier charity. When a pioneer died alone or without family, it was often Masons who ensured he received a proper burial. When a widow or orphan needed help, it was the lodge that stepped in. When disputes arose, Masons were frequently chosen as mediators because they were known for fairness. In this way, Freemasonry quietly influenced the culture of the early West, not through grand ceremonies, but through steady character and service. So, while you won't find many stories of lodge meetings held in covered wagons, you will find something even more important. The spirit of Masonry carried across 2,000 miles of mountains, plains, and desert. It traveled with the pioneers, shaped their friendships, guided their actions, and helped build the first communities at the end of the trail. Freemasonry on the Oregon Trail wasn't about ritual. It was about resilience. It was about bringing civility to a wilderness, stability to danger, and brotherhood to a place where strangers depended on one another for survival. When the pioneers finally reached Oregon, California, or the Northwest, they didn't just build new towns, they built new lodges, and those lodges helped lay the moral and civic foundation of the American West.